Hello, Ken. How are you this fine evening?
Dan, thanks for asking. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I have something to tell you.
Mm.
I have the power. What does that mean?
You're more powerful than I am. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe it means this. Maybe it means that when we think we have the power, we actually may not. Maybe it means that when we think we're doing all the things that exhibit and show forth to others that we have power, we really don't. So maybe we've got the whole power thing screwed up. And this past week, I had a great experience with power and what I thought were the right actions to express to get to a solution. My dad's had a particular phone number since 1957. And a few months ago, he moved in with my sister. We wanted to switch that number over, and we're able to do it through this mobile technology. It's like emulating a landline. The new charge was about half, about $30 of what it used to be for a landline. Great, great, great. So I'm reviewing his bills like I do every quarter and was noticing there's a $30 charge against a credit card for the phone bill. Perfect. But then there's also a $60+ charge against his bank account for the same phone number. And I thought, something's going on. I can't figure it out, but I need to talk with him. So I called, told him the situation. Dad's 96. Here's his social security number. Here's his account number, and gave them the option to talk with him. It's like, he's right here in the room if you need his approval to make me, a co whatever on the account, do it. They're like, no, we need the security code when you set up the account. I go, man, I don't even remember setting that up. What are some other options? And the guy's like, there aren't any. And something just went off in me. I never yelled, didn't really raise my voice, but I went into the let me see if I've got this straight, sir routine. You're telling me that there are literally no options if I can't give you this 4-digit code to actually find out why you're overcharging my 96-year-old father. And the guy got super apologetic, and I sensed weakness. So I went even harder. And we ended up with, you have to load your dad into the car, Walker and all, drive him down to the AT&T store and have him give them a new code. And it's like, this can't be the only solution. So I got more upset, lectured him about customer experience. He said it wasn't his policy and he had to follow it. He literally couldn't get into the screen. And I just hung up super upset. And that night, I went back through my head, like how I spoke to him. And I went in with him as an adversary. So I thought, call back the next day. And I'm going to go in with this, with an attitude of wanting this guy to be an advocate and wanting to cooperate and wanting to solve it and not be right. And so we ended up having this conversation back and forth. And it was the same situation. He's like, literally, I'm looking at a screen right now and I can't get in unless I type in this code. He's like, if I could, I would. I sympathize with your situation. So he started just asking me questions like, could it be, 4 digits from your dad's social security number? Could it be his birthday? Could it be his birthday plus the year? Could it be the day in the year? And finally he said, I wonder, are there any security codes that you just kind of use as a default? And you may have used one of those. And in fact, there are. And I gave him one and we got in and we were able to solve the problem. And I never had to get upset. My blood pressure didn't go up. The guy was amazing. And what I noticed, Dan, was just like this give and take and these periods of silence. And it was okay to just like ponder and think and ask and prompt. It was the best of communication. And it frankly was my access to power, because what I got was, when my mind is pumped on adrenaline and anger and upset, even if I'm not yelling, I had no access to power. I had no access to anything. I couldn't let my mind come to rest in that first call. The second call, I began with my mind at rest, and stuff just opened up. The conversation opened up, and that number that I knew just rose up to the surface. Was absolutely unable to do that, had no access to it before, when anger and being right and needing to make somebody else wrong was the dominant intention.
This reminds me of a famous story from Hurricane Katrina. And it goes a little something like this. There was a man, and he was a very stubborn man, but he was a very faith-filled man. And as they were driving buses around, getting the people out, he said, "Don't worry, God will save me." And then as the levees broke and the waters were flooding in, he went up to his second level. And then fortunately, there were people still coming around, finding people who were left behind in boats. And they said, "Let's go." And he said, "Don't worry, I have faith, God will save me." And then eventually the floodwaters got so high, he's on his roof, and they were sending helicopters looking for people left behind. And they saw him, they lowered their ladder. They said, "Let's go." And he said, "Don't worry, God will save me." And then he died, and he's up at the pearly gates, and he gets to see God because he was a faith-filled man. He lived a great life. And he said, "God, I had all this faith in you. You were going to save me. What happened?" And God said, "I sent a bus, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. You have to do your part." And I only bring this up because our topic is who has the power. And I think it's very common for anybody who has faith in a higher power to think that they are powerless, right? Because that actually goes along with AA. AA will say, or NA will say, you are powerless except for God, right? Or the higher power. So you are powerless against your addiction. While I love those programs, I would say you have to take the power that you've been given by God and you have to do something with it. So power really comes from first this acceptance that everything is your fault. Everything is your fault. I once heard a self-help guy give a talk, and he said, if I get cancer, it's my fault. And you could think, no, you might have a genetic predisposition or whatever. And he said, no. And he went through this list of things that he could be doing that would help mitigate or lower his risk, right? So the moment he's not making those decisions, he's taking responsibility for, that ends up happening. But I think to really accept the power you have, it starts with full acceptance that you are responsible for your life and everything in it, and not to give up what is your, I'll say, God-given gift or right to have autonomy, to have free will, to be able to really look at any situation and go, you know what, I have the power to figure this out. I know that doesn't perfectly align with where Ken started this, but that's where my mind went with where you have the power.
So I actually think there is alignment, as I listen to what you're saying, because I usually start when I work with clients by telling them I have good news and I have bad news, and they're the same thing. You're 100% responsible. And the good news in that is that if things are not occurring the way you want them to, take responsibility, which gives you access to power, which allows you to change them and make them the way that you want. And I think in this case, it was me recognizing that I had the power to let go of anger and upset and needing to be right and needing to make somebody else wrong. And that power was really this strength was really this kind of gentleness. I think it was St. Francis de Sales who talked about like real strength is actually gentleness. And there was something so meaningful in letting go of that stuff and then realizing that with this guy, we were like co-creating the answer to this problem. That felt really powerful. That felt amazing. It felt easy too. That was the other thing, like this great sense of ease. And what it did was it really challenged my assumptions about what constitutes power and how we look at that. and the kinds of choices that we have in situations where we feel like the way through is bulldozing. And I guess you could argue that in some cases that works, but man, that leaves a lot of debris in its wake. And for me, the easiest way through is just to enroll somebody else in being a partner in creating a solution. And frankly, that took something more than just being angry at a huge corporation and taking it out on some guy who's, probably not working for the best wages in the world, doing his best, and probably having to put up with people like me, that first call, more often than not. And so I had a chance to sort of redeem that experience by stepping in, recognizing I've got a choice in this, and also that the power really comes from working collaboratively with somebody else. That to me was the win. And that was the place where I really found that I need to look in all sorts of areas in my life. Where are there other places where I tend to bulldoze or impose, where I can actually enroll and collaborate?
So everyone's probably heard this. I don't know if it's a parable or saying that they say, feed a man a fish and you feed him for a meal. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So that is my common response when I'm asked usually by a company, what is my philosophy on managing people? And I usually just give that example. And I say that because we're talking about power. And really, I think when we talk about power, most people in a leadership position or a management position think of themselves like they can almost build their ego up. Like, I have the power to hire you or fire you or demote you, promote you, right? Give you a raise or not, do all these things. And it's like, really, the ultimate leadership power is in your ability to teach your people to fish. So you're literally, by handing off your power, you are making yourself less powerful, but in a sense, you become more powerful. It's this kind of weird reverse thing. But really, by giving them over the thing that you hold on to, with the ability to know how to do this skill, right? And by training them to do it on their own, they don't even need you anymore. You actually become more powerful. So I think it's an interesting kind of flip on the whole thought of what is power and how it applies to leadership or management. It's that truly, to have more power, you need to give away the power that you already have.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, and I love the give a man a fish, teach a man to fish thing, or woman. But not but, I'll say and. One of the other pieces that came out of this in terms of leadership was, when I think about the people that I've worked with, the companies that I've consulted with, and the leaders that understand this, man, they're held in the highest regard by their team. They see them as people who are selfless and who are without ego and who want their best good, who want their highest good to happen. Like they're actually there to build up their team, not to bully their team. They're there to grant their team access to the kind of power that they hold. But by letting go of it, by giving it away, as you were saying, Dan, it is this weird dichotomy. It's almost like it amplifies because they're the ones who released it. And that's how the team grows. And the thing I experienced with this guy on the phone the second time, the first time I felt so crappy at the end of the call because he was apologizing. It's like, he goes, I have an elderly mother. I know how hard this is. I know what you're going through. I'm so sorry. I wish I could have helped you. It's like, I literally cannot break through this. And, it was only after we hung up that I got that he actually got the situation, was genuinely sorry he couldn't do anything, but was stuck. I mean, there's some cases where you're stuck. But unlike that second call where I went in wanting to have him be my partner, there was no place to move. I was just stuck in my position. And with this other guy, we had a chance to move around. And at the end of that call, he thanked me for being patient and for working with him and for taking time. And I know these guys have got like calls stacked up and they're trying to make it through, but he was so appreciative of the fact that we just took time together to talk it out and to solve it like a team. Even though I'm customer, he's customer service agent, we approached it from that team perspective. And at the end, we felt good. The problem was solved. And I just realized that, that's the way through. And the other piece that I thought about, and this goes back to what you're saying too, is as the fear sort of fades in a management situation, if you're not afraid of your boss, if your boss isn't wielding power in a way that's like detrimental to you, you can relax. And in that relaxing, you can be more creative. Ideas are going to bubble up. You're going to feel freer to share them and not worry about getting your head bitten off because you might have said something wrong or upsetting. It just accrues to everyone's benefit. Creativity, engagement, relatedness, productivity, all that stuff's going to go up in the kind of situation that we've been describing.
I had a coaching call before this, and in it, the client was talking about a situation at their job. They're a very high-level executive in a business, and they were just very frustrated with how things were being handled in their position. And we kind of talked through the options or the ideas they had to resolve it. The point of this is that I suggested, and they agreed, that the plan would be to gain leverage over the business. And I'll tell you how they were doing this, so it makes sense. So one of their options would be to leave the job. They had lost some trust in the company because of a promise that wasn't kept, and they wanted to fix it, right? But our talk realized that if you go without a clear option, you're kind of faking it, or you're acting out like you have some choice that you don't really have. So what was figured out was if they went out and secured an available opportunity to join another company, you don't have to accept the job, at least have an offer or a verbal offer on the table, then now what they hold is leverage, right? They can go in and it changes the whole mindset. It's literally, like, the best way to describe it is you're handing over power to them to make a decision to resolve something, and you're okay either way, right? So they can go in and say, listen, this has really frustrated me. I would really hope that we could, work together to figure this out. I'd like to stay here. I would like, but this is how it should look moving forward for both of us, to this be a win-win situation. But if they don't do it, they're literally, and then they're like, hand the cards on the table, give them the power to go yes or no. But it's okay, right? Like, I almost think, like, the moment you have the power, you gain this leverage that you have now power. You want to just hand it to the person you're negotiating with or trying to influence, because then, truly, it's not like you're coming from a place of desperation or scarcity, or a place where, like, I'd be so afraid to lose it, I'll make a bad deal. So I think in any sort of deal-making influence, you always want to hold something where it's okay either way, right? So in the case of, like, where we started the story today, Ken would have had to be ready to say, okay, I guess we're going to have to get a different phone company then, right? And you don't want to play that card, but it's nice to know, worst case, you have a card to play. And of course, I think whatever company you're dealing with knows that you have choices already going in. So in that case, it's so small apples, you don't really need that. But in the bigger case, my lesson is just gain leverage, that you have something that you can use in its place, and then just hand that leverage over to them, like, give them the power. Because ultimately, by giving them the power, I think you get to a better resolution.
It reminds me of a great phrase about living in the question. And what it goes to is, can you be with life as it is and as it is not? Can you be okay with just how it goes? And what you're talking about, Dan, is so powerful, to use the word of the evening. And that is, like, yeah, I can be with you saying it's not going to work. You'll need to find another job. I can be with you saying, yeah, you're right. We need to work out something different here so you can be here and feel good about being here. And when you're in that space, man, you can't be touched, because either way it goes is truly going to be okay. And if you can get to that, then you really understand the essence of power.